our family joining us through this gift of technology, the family joining us online on the internet. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. There's a microphone right here, so don't be shy. Just feel free to come and share your name, share where you're from, and your question. But we'll start first with one that's come in advance. I have been going through a spiritual awakening, and I am finding it difficult to go back to my normal life job. I feel like helping others, but that isn't going to pay the bills. What should I do? And this is asked by Jody from Boston. Ultimately, at the core, our spiritual practice and all of the experiences, awakenings, enlightenment, growth that we have is not meant to take us further from the world. It's meant to actually bring us closer into it. So ultimately, ideally, that which you experience in your meditation, in your prayers, in your yoga, in your spiritual experience should make actually your life easier, more in divine flow, all of that. The dilemma happens when what we're doing is out of alignment with our spiritual values, or when the spiritual awakening experience isn't quite as full and complete as we think it is, and there's a little bit of kind of threads of ego woven in of what we think a spiritually awake person should be doing. And so there comes a little bit of this kind of, this is beneath me, this isn't spiritual. And it's interesting because you start to actually have more division. Real spirituality is about breaking borders and boundaries. But along the way, when there's still like an ego struggle, we actually find ourselves, as we come on a spiritual path, one of the first things that happens is decidedly not a spiritual thing, and it's the boxing up of this is spiritual, that's not. It's like they say, you know, the most emphatic non-smokers are the people who used to smoke. Somebody who's never smoked, okay, you know, doesn't like the smell, isn't going to be near it, isn't going to want you to harm your health. But those who tend to be the most emphatic about how awful it is and how people who smoke are weak, and almost inevitably, they're the ones who have just recently stopped smoking. In the same way, a lot of times on a spiritual path, as we start to experience something beyond the body, beyond illusion, beyond our roles, and it's beautiful. When we come out of that and we open our eyes back into the world, there can be a bit of this spiritual ego that comes in and that says, you know, this is spiritual, that isn't, I am, you're not. I can't do this because this isn't spiritual. And that's very true with regard to things that violate our spiritual precepts. So if you look at yam and niyam of the 8 limbs of yoga that the sage Patanjali gave us, if you look at the 10 commandments of a Judeo-Christian tradition, if you look at kind of any lists of thou shalt not in any religion, they have a lot of overlap, almost entirely overlapping. Don't hurt, Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Essentially, be an honest person. Live with love, live with generosity. Don't hoard, don't be selfish. Don't harm. Be honest. Engaging in work that is in violation of that absolutely is going to be very difficult. And it should be difficult, and there's no reason to do it. This is where in Buddhism they speak so much about right livelihood. Earn a living. Just because you're religious doesn't mean that people are going to, want to throw money at you and support you and whatnot. But do it in a right way. Right livelihood. And there's lots and lots of emphasis in the Buddhist tradition, in the Hindu tradition, on the great inner power that comes from hard work. There's nothing in there that says, oh, once you become spiritual, like make sure you cut down your work hours and, spend a lot more time with your feet up and let other people do things. And it's actually more. It's all about the power of hard work and heart work. So what I would say to, what was her name, Jody, is first look at your job itself, and if it's something that violates your spiritual values and precepts, leave it. Never worry that you're not going to be able to feed yourself because you are insisting on a job that doesn't violate your spiritual values. Don't work for companies that are polluting the environment, that are suppressing and oppressing workers or suppliers somewhere along the supply chain whose only or main goal is just the bottom line, whoever it may hurt. Get out of that work. Get out of work that forces you to do something that is against what you believe in. But recognize the value in getting up and working every day and putting in a hard day, a heart day of work. And just because you're having this beautiful spiritual opening, not only shouldn't it change that, but it should make it even easier. Our scriptures are filled with stories of even manual laborers, cobblers, gardeners, manual laborers, low-level people who are the spiritual awakened ones. So it's not, I was a cobbler before I got awakened, then I got awakened, and now I can't be a cobbler anymore. Now you're just a spiritually awake cobbler. So it's not about what you do or don't do, so much as how you do it. It's like that great story that I love of the person who goes in search of the monk, the master, in a little cabin in the woods, and he knocks on the front door and no one answers, and he hears some noise around the back, so he walks around the back of the cabin and sees someone chopping firewood and says, "Excuse me, sir, I'm looking for the master." And the person chopping the wood says, "Yes, that is what they call me." And the guy's amazed, like, you're the wood chopper. How can you be the master? And he says, "Well, what do you do as a master?" He says, "I chop wood and I collect water from the river." And he says, "And what did you do before you got enlightened?" He said, "I chopped wood, I collected water from the river." It's not the what, it's the how and the who. It's the internal experience of who I am, and it's the motivation for doing it. So you want to help people, that's beautiful. If your job doesn't help people, find a job that does. There's so many ways of making an honest, good living that's actually helping people. But what you also can realize is it doesn't necessarily have to come only from what you do 9 to 5. Being a person who emanates love is helping people. People are suffering in this world. Everybody is looking for just a smile, just a kind word, just somebody to look in their eyes and actually listen to them rather than scroll on their phone when they try to say something. We are dying for connection. And just showing up in your world, look at people, actually strike up a conversation, actually smile, actually listen when someone is speaking. Have a bit of a human to human even. We don't even have to go divine to divine. Just human to human connection of love. Never underestimate how incredibly beneficial that is. You know, in one of my favorite psychological studies ever done, this is decades ago, they were doing a study to figure out which school of psychology was the most effective. Cognitive behavioral therapy, regular behavior therapy, psychodynamic therapy. There's now many others that have sprung up, but this was several decades ago. So it was a handful of different types of therapy. And as in any good scientific experiment, you always have to have a control group. So they had certain people receiving cognitive behavioral therapy, certain people receiving behavioral therapy, certain people receiving psychodynamic psychotherapy. And then the control group were receiving just same amount of time, but with not a therapist, just an ordinary, random, nice person. Like just having a normal conversation, no therapy or anything. And what they found, much to the embarrassment of the field of psychology, is that not only was there no significant difference between the different schools of psychology, but there actually wasn't even a significant difference between going for professional therapy versus spending the same amount of time just talking to a nice, compassionate person. So never underestimate the power of just being nice, just being compassionate, just actually listening to people. As you have your awakening, let it open your heart more and more so that you can actually share that with more and more people. And then even if you're just sitting on the subway next to somebody, you're helping them. Just smiling at someone as you cross on the sidewalk and they're stressed out going into a meeting. A smile from an awakened being is enough to transform our lives. And if you can just help make someone's walk to work a little bit less stressful, you smile at them, they smile back, they soften, they relax. You've helped them so deeply. So allow that spiritual practice to just infuse everything you do. And if you have to get a new job, get a new job. But don't think that your spiritual awakening is inconsistent with having a job at all. It just may be inconsistent with your current job, it may not. But it's definitely not inconsistent at all with having a regular job. Wonderful. Other questions? Yes, of course. Come.
Sadhviji, pranam. I'm a bit nervous because I see you every day on YouTube from Hong Kong. I live in Hong Kong. It's a very emotional moment for me. I read your book, Sadhviji, Hollywood to the Himalayas. I read that your first visit to Rishikesh was the changing point in your life. I had a very similar experience 2 years back, when the first visit to Rishikesh completely transformed my life upside down. So my question is, Sadhviji, what is the biggest sign that we've attained, we've got the purpose, or we know what purpose of our life is? And do we just go with the flow once we know it?
Yeah, great. So, first of all, it's important to realize we don't all have just one purpose of life. And if you do, chances are it's going to be very broad. I mean, you spoke about my experience. And so, yes, you're right that when I first came, I had this experience that made me know I was meant to be here. But the purpose of my life didn't actually become obvious until many, many, many years later. And it happened in a completely different situation. I knew I was meant to be here. And I spent the first 10, 15 years doing just a wide variety, a huge variety of different seva. Basically whatever Pujya Swamiji gave me to do. Ranging from his correspondence to designing brochures to, I mean, just anything and everything that needed to be done. The Encyclopedia of Hinduism project, the charity work that arose, whether it was tsunami, whether it was Montserover, but just kind of all of the logistics of it all. Raise the money for it, make the brochure for it, keep the accounts for it, let people know, design the website for it, do all of the online. I mean, I did all of that. And in 2000, something. Kind of mid-2000s, I cannot remember exactly what year, but mid-2000s, say I had been here 12, 15 years. We were in Seoul, South Korea, at this big, beautiful interfaith event that had taken place literally in a stadium, like an Olympic-sized stadium. And I had been a speaker there at this enormous event. And I was flying from Seoul to New York City to be at a program at the United Nations. And along the way, I had a day that I was going to spend in New Jersey doing a satsang for the community at the Hindu temple there in New Jersey. And I'm in the airport in Seoul. And I can still picture it. Those epiphany moments, they sear themselves into your memory in such a way you can just picture it. And I can picture myself walking through the airport with my little, the little carts they give you to stick your carry-on bags in and whatnot if you want to shop or whatever. So I wasn't shopping, but I was pushing it nonetheless. And I'm walking past, and I can still see the gift shop on my right, and I'm walking to my gate. And I'm kind of chuckling with myself. And I'm saying to myself, who are you? This is so funny. What do you do? And who are you? I mean, an Olympic-sized stadium of an interfaith harmony event, United Nations, water and climate change or gender equality or whatever I was going for. And a Hindu temple and Bhagavad Gita, who are you and what are you doing? And it wasn't troubling to me, but I was definitely having a bit of fun with just sort of the craziness of the adventure that my life had taken me on, which was certainly unexpected. And in that exact moment, I had this flash. And the flash was, all you have to do is spread love and peace. That is your job description. And it was that epiphany moment of, oh, that's my purpose. It's not about, it could be Pujya Swamiji's letters. It could be the Encyclopedia of Hinduism. It could be the schools we were building that we needed to raise money for. It could be tsunami relief we needed to raise money for. It could be books that I was, writing for him. All of I was doing lots and lots and lots of books for him, of his teachings and all of that. This huge spectrum of things. But I realized every bit of it had the singular aim and objective, which was to share and spread love and peace. And maybe it was a house for someone who had lost theirs in the tsunami. Maybe it was a school. Maybe it was spiritual inspiration that they were going to get from a book, or they were going to get it from a letter that came to them from Pujya Swamiji, giving his blessings, and the way that that changed people's lives. And I realized in that moment that, that's the purpose. And I could recognize that every single thing I had done up until that moment, and what I was now starting to do, was just that. And as my particular seva has changed over the years, I no longer do his correspondence. I'm no longer involved in designing of brochures or any of those logistics or anything. It's shifted. Now most of the time is in teaching and sharing or writing or kind of a higher level planning, but there's still a whole bunch of stuff. But I've realized that it doesn't matter what it is. There's nothing that's high, there's nothing that's low, there's nothing that's important or unimportant, because it all falls under this umbrella of sharing love and peace. And what that means is that I just have to show up in each moment, anchored and grounded enough, regardless of what's going on, that I can share that in that moment. So when you say, how do you know what your purpose is, or not, you didn't say that. You said, how do you know when you're living your purpose? When you found it and you're living it. I'm sorry? The sign. You'll know because you'll be in alignment. What I know is that when I share love and I share peace with people, in whatever way that may manifest, it feels in alignment. And you will know that. And so it's really important to realize that we don't have one purpose in life that's narrow and small and just one thing. At different moments of life, you will have different things that take up most of your attention and intention. Mothering a newborn child, being there for a parent in the final days of their life, early days of getting married, early days of a new job. These are times when one thing really takes over kind of all of your energy and attention. But throughout the rest of our lives, we tend to actually have a lot of different ways that we manifest our purpose here. So the sign that you're living in alignment with it is you feel in alignment. You feel that what you're doing is in alignment with what your purpose is, but make sure that you don't get stuck in an ego trip about your purpose. Because that's really easy. This is below me. This isn't my job. This isn't, when I first came, and up until really recently, nobody here at the ashram had any titles. There was Pujya Swamiji, and the rest of us were just in seva. And yeah, there were some people who most of their seva involved cooking, and other people whose most of their seva involved cleaning, and other people who most of their seva involved accounts and whatnot. But we purposely never had actual titles up until really recently. Up until we started doing work with organizations like the UN who needed to know, well, Like, who's the right person from your team for me to talk to? Like, obviously not the cook, not the guy who sweeps. Who is it? So we started having to kind of invent titles, but there was something really magical about not having that, because it doesn't allow your ego to get stuck on, oh, I'm a teacher, or oh, I'm a nurse because like I'm the one everybody comes to for Band-Aids and medicine, or I'm this. There's so many different things you do that it saves you from the ego ever getting its claws and clutches on you of, oh, this is who I am. And so when you're aligning with purpose, make sure that you don't get an ego trip in it. Purpose should connect you to the universe, to your highest self. It should be that. You say, do we go with the flow? Not only do you go with the flow, but you become the flow. You just flow. When you are aligned with purpose, you flow. The more of an ego trip it becomes, the more rigid you get. So keep asking yourself as you're going, am I in alignment? Am I in flow? And when I say that you are in the flow, it doesn't mean, by the way, that you allow others to just, I always say spirituality does not make you a doormat. So it's not other people walk all over you. It's not they push you however they want. It's not that you go by other people's ego flows. But you become the flow, meaning that the divine flow, that power, that presence of love, of peace, of service, flows through you. And it flows through naturally, and it flows through powerfully, and it flows through effectively, and it flows through just in a beautiful way. And it doesn't mean there aren't challenges, there are. But you feel it, you know it. Yeah, because your purpose becomes quite high. Your purpose then is no longer about the money you're going to make, or the house you're going to build, or the position you're going to get on a social ladder, or the acclaim you're going to get, or the fame you're going to get. When those are the goals, you're not aligned. When you're in purpose, the success, it flows automatically. Sometimes it flows in the form of money, sometimes it just flows in the form of personal happiness. But it flows in a way that is actually what you need. Yeah, beautiful. Of course, yes.
Good evening. My name is Parampreet and I've come from Chandigarh. I see people as my competitors. I'm aware about the concept of oneness, but suppose there is one thing available and there are 1,000 people after it. So I have to prove myself better than them to get that thing or that job or whatever. So how can I love or like my competitors, and how can I see them as one with me when I have to fight against them for everything?
Beautiful. So never think of yourself as fighting against someone for a position or a job. Think of just that you are shining your light in the fullest way possible. It's not about you versus them. They're going to shine their light, you're going to shine your light. Don't think about, I have to prove I'm better than they are. Just think, I have to show my best light. If you get chosen, wonderful. If not, the universe has something else in store for you. But you get jealous. So what you need to recognize is it has nothing to do with being better in general, but they may be better at that particular task. We are very poor judges of our own ability. Another one of the really fun areas of studies that I love from psychology is something like, and I forget the exact statistics, it's been a long time, but it's something like 80 to 90% of people think that they are above average intelligence. Right? Now, average means 50%, which means 50% of people are actually below average intelligence. But almost everybody thinks they're above average. Same thing goes with most skill sets. Almost everyone thinks that they're much better at things than they really are. We are not very good judges of our own skill set in many ways. Do your best. If there's a particular job that you want that requires a particular skill set, best would be to get some third person who's objective and who knows the material to assess your ability and to help you improve. If you find you're not getting the jobs that you want, get some assistance. What is it that you don't have? What skill set don't you have that they have? And improve it. Rather than just keep thinking, I'll beat them next time, or feeling awful and jealous. There's no need. Improve your skills. Or recognize, I guess I'm not actually so good at that. Maybe I should be doing something else. Lots of people change professions when they realize that what they're doing, they're not very good at, or they don't actually enjoy it. And so they embark on a whole new profession. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, let me just finish this and then because I want to come to your jealousy point before we get off track. So, other people are not competitors. Everybody is just doing their best. But to feel like that is very natural. It has evolved with us along with the species. But recognize that it's taking you spiritually backwards in evolution rather than forwards. That it's taking you back into the realm of, our animal ancestors or our, Neanderthal ancestors, where there was many fewer resources, lots of fighting, somebody's going to get this fish to take home, and whoever gets to take it home gets to eat and live, and whoever doesn't get it, they die. We're not in that case anymore, at least those of us sitting here. You're not going to die if you don't get that job. But that part of your brain thinks you will. Recognize that that level of competitiveness is taking you back. The higher form, the spiritually evolved form, is the experience of oneness. But there's a lot of evolutionary pull. There's billions of years of evolution and tens of thousands of years of our current, kind of human state of evolution that's telling you, fight for it. If you don't get it, you're going to die. And this is where we overcome that kind of animal instinct within us. The jealousy that you feel has to do with you identifying as your success in the realm of career. When we over-identify as our physical bodies, we're always going to be jealous. We're always going to be in competition. Whether it's beauty competition, whether it's skill set competition, whether it's intelligence competition or popularity competition, we're always going to compete, because if this is how I identify, well then for me to feel okay about myself, it better be good. And everybody who's better than I am is a threat. I'm going to hate them. I'm going to compete against them, want to beat them. If I lose, I'm going to feel awful. Because it's not just a statement about my ability, it's a statement about who I am. And this is where what we call gyan is so important. You need a practice of gyan to remember who you are. That you're not your skill set. You're not your career. You're not your abilities. There's going to be lots of things that people are better at than you. That's all right. It's the nature of nature. There's going to be things that you're better at than other people. Figure out what are those things that you really excel in, that come naturally in a, not easy, a challenge is good, but things that with work you excel in. Because we all want to excel. We all want to do well. And rather than constantly be competing against everyone else for positions that you're not getting, find something that you can do, that you enjoy doing, that you're good at, that people want to hire you to do, that you're not feeling jealous about everybody being better than you are. But still don't identify as it. And still remember that even if there's nothing on earth that you're good at, you're still divine. And ultimately the goal is not to be good at everything or good at anything. Ultimately the goal is to realize who you are. So even if you're good at nothing else, at least get really clear about who you are.
Pranam. Most of the people in society consider yoga, asana, pranayam as a yoga, asana, pranayam. And you have said in Ganga Arti yoga, Bhakti yoga,
yes,
and other yoga. So what exactly yoga is?
Yoga, the word yoga, literally in Sanskrit means union, to unite. Ultimately, it's a union of what we call Jivatma, individual soul, to Paramatma, supreme divine soul. That is ultimately what yoga is. Now, there's many different ways to get into the stream of yoga. The Ashtanga Yoga tradition that the sage Patanjali Ji gave us, 8 limbs of yoga, take us through everything beginning with what you could consider the foundation of yoga, yam and niyam, how we live with ourselves, how we live in the world, the non-violence, the truthfulness, non-stealing, all of this. It includes asana, it includes pranayama, and then it brings us deeper into our mind. A withdrawal of the senses, a single-pointed concentration, meditation, and ultimately, divine union or samadhi. But then you have teachings like the Bhagavad Gita that are scriptures on yoga and don't mention asana anywhere. In the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna speaks about yoga as bhakti yoga or karma yoga or jnana yoga, other ways of entering the stream, through love and devotion, through wisdom, through action. But yoga is that river, that stream of oneness, that ocean of oneness. And the question becomes, how are you going to get in? So asana is one way in. It's very beneficial if you are going to have a strong practice of what we call Raja Yoga, which is of meditation, because, quite simply, if the body hurts, it's very hard to sit and meditate. If the body is achy, if the body is feverish, if the body is in pain, it's very hard to bring the mind into a single-pointed consciousness, into meditation. And so using the body is very powerful. But it also even is its own way in. I had the incredible blessing of actually practicing with Sri BKS Iyengarji one day in Pune in his studio. And he was just doing his own personal practice. Everybody was doing personal practices. It was kind of an open practice time, and he was in there doing his practice. He was probably at that time mid to late 80s. And he would do these very, very difficult back bends that he would have himself over straps, just super difficult back bends, holding himself for 20, 25 minutes. He would do Shirshasana, headstand, for 20, 25 minutes. The 30-year-olds in the room couldn't keep up with him. Because when he was practicing, all of his students from around the world would obviously want to do what he was doing. He wasn't teaching, he was just practicing, but they would all try to do what he was doing. They would come out of it huffing and puffing, sweaty. And I watched him. I never would have thought that asana in and of itself could be a pathway in, but I saw it in his eyes. I've never seen it in any other person's eyes coming out of just an asana. But when he came out of any of the asanas I saw him in, even the most difficult, strenuous ones, his eyes looked like he had just emerged from a cave of meditation. And it really made me realize, wow, they're right. All of these streams, collectively but also individually, can actually get you there. What most people have found is that allowing yourself to work with all of the limbs, all the way up through the mind into samadhi, is much more effective than just trying to get in straight through asana. That bringing in practices of bhakti yoga, of jnana yoga, of karma yoga is much more effective than only ashtanga yoga. But I just do have to give the caveat that I did see in his eyes something that was undeniably divinely connected. That he absolutely had entered into that state of oneness through a headstand or through a back bend. So you can get there, but from all of that which I've learned and experienced about yoga in almost 3 decades, I would say bring in the other aspects as well. Bring in practices of meditation. Make sure that your foundation is yam and niyam. Otherwise it becomes just exercise. Bring in practices of bhakti yoga and jnana yoga. And of course Iyengarji did this anyway. He just didn't do it right in front of us. But those were all huge parts of his practice. Make sure that you bring all of that in, because that ultimate oneness and union is our highest state. It's our truest state. But we really do need all the help we can get, removing the illusion, removing the attachment, removing the stuckness. Use your body, use your breath, use your mind, use your heart, use your actions. Use everything that you have to enter that stream. Beautiful. Have a a beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. A beautiful day and morning to our family from all over the world. And I look so forward to being together with you all again tomorrow. And while you're here, dive into all of the different opportunities for yoga that we offer. The actual yoga classes, the meditation classes, the philosophy classes, the beautiful yagna and arti, of course. But give yourself all of these different opportunities to become part of a stream that is entering the river. That river of awakening, that river of union, that river of yoga. And I'll see you all tomorrow in the evening. If we didn't have a chance to get to your question, I'm so sorry. We will take it first thing tomorrow. And so much love to you all.